All right. Thank you, everybody. This is the Institute for Teacher Excellence channel, Tahir Dalila, where we talk about meditation, we talk about empowerment, we talk about self-sovereignty, we talk about freedom towards education. I have a very, very special guest, Keith Mitchell. So for those of you who don't know, he is a former NFL player, and he is one of the greatest inspirations to mankind. And the reason I say that is because a lot of his current work, and especially his embodiment of the work, goes vast and globally. So I believe there is not a country that has not been felt and touched by him upon his landing. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Keith, is about mindfulness meditation, or perhaps meditation in motion. How would you describe and define meditation?
I like how you said meditation in motion. Because when you talk about meditation solely by itself, it's not so much an action, call to action. It's more of a reflection, self-evaluation, is to be the observer. And what they don't cover, in my opinion, in the esoteric environment or spiritual environment, is as you become the watcher, you will also be your critic, or the adjustment maker. And you're to see how you're positioning yourself, how you're navigating, and see how you can correct it. If you look at the athletes when we train, every movement looks the same. It's a 90-degree press. It's a sprint. It's the same sprint. The reason why we do the repetition, because through repetition, we find excellence. Through repetition, we find a mastery of the art. And that's what we have to consider when we talk about meditation. If we're not really doing a self-evaluation, checking in to see how we can better up how we're performing, how we're showing up, then we lose the benefit of meditation. The first thing I ask people is, why do you meditate? You know, and I tend to don't get the answer that I prefer, because really the reason why you would meditate is to be more relatable to others. We're not here to just be in isolation. You know, we're not here to be in isolation. Idea is we want to be connected. We want to have relationships. I call them relationships because they're ongoing. So when the ongoing idea of these things are not stagnant, and so nothing is finite. So in all aspects, all situations, we don't have to stay in the predicaments. We can level them up. We can evolve them. We can heal them simultaneously in these things. So in looking at that, that's how I see meditation.
That's so beautiful.
A long answer.
No, not at all. I love your reflections. I'm always tuning into your reflections, you know, whether they're written or even just when you are, you know, sharing your content. I think it's really fascinating. One of the interesting things that you pointed out was about this linkage, right? Is connecting with people. And so what does it take, Keith, in these days or in these moments where there is a call or, you know, a major announcement to separate, you know, whether that's in the airport, oh, stay this many feet apart, or whether that's in the market or wherever it is. What is it? How is it that you would recommend people can come back and not perhaps be afraid of reaching out and connecting with other people?
Well, I think, you know, there's a saying that you know, people desire to be around like-minded people. I don't want to be around like-minded people. I want to be around curious people. Curious people are always questioning. You know, curious people are always wondering, okay, what does that mean? Okay, you said this, but what do you mean by this? It gets to the root of the situation instead of just bypassing the actual issue and really doing the due diligence of what this actually means, you know? And so, and what we'll find is a lot of things that we've been told, because we have so much data. I mean, if you've been on the planet 25 years and up, you have a tremendous amount of data. And a part of your meditation is to observe that data as well. Observe that. And then from that, you can begin to categorize things like, okay, I've been told this how many times? and how many times has it been for my benefit? You know, you can kind of track that if you really take in consideration. This is why the life is the university. Your experience is your university, your degree, and your graduation, you know. And so we're here, and with that information, we can decide from that, does it suit my best interests? We desire connection. The first lineage and line of nourishment is human connectivity. And when we deny ourselves that, you know, we go into the compensation, you know. You talk about the original people, they were breatharians. It was like photosynthesis, they sun gaze. And they get all the information, because nutrition is information. We got all the information from the sun, just like the plants. Chlorophyll is a cousin of melanin. So the dynamic of our relationship to nature is we're that in a different form, you know?
I love that so much. Wow. I love connecting. I love that when we get the opportunity to really see what is our connection to nature, because we are not separate from nature, and it's really beautiful. Another thing that when I think about you and people ask me, well, who is Keith Mitchell? I often like to describe your work or what you stand for as mindful breathing and the art of breath work and healing through breath. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, yeah, you know, breathing is really an amazing tool. It's the way we process the information. You know, it's like when you think of even the pH balance, right? The pH, everybody's talking about alkalinity. And the thing about alkalinity is the assimilation, it's the likeness. And so when it's on my level, when I can break it down to my level, then I can process it and then realize the information that is here to give me. And so as I'm going through life and experiences, we have to realize trauma that we've never really realized that we should heal from, or look out and search out help to heal from. And so we were typically not navigating through life with these things we call triggers. So imagine trying to connect with someone who has, if you take and consider a trigger as it sounds, just like kind of like a landmine. You've got all these landmines on you. You're trying to connect to this person, hoping that you don't step on the landmine. Well, how is that going to be possible? You know?
Wow.
You know, it's like,
Yes.
it's going to be a big issue with that. So breathing is an opportunity to process the situation, slow things down, assess it, bringing that intelligence. Because when we talk about presence has more to do with intelligence than anything. And if you want to call, well, what is my intelligence? Your innate senses, you know, your sight, your touch, your taste, your smell. These are all your innate intelligence that allows you to hold this space of presence. And so with that knowledge that we bring, that life experience that we bring, we're to show up. And this is why they say we have it all inside of us, and we do, but we have to access the tools to allow us to tap into what we actually know. And so we breathe. So breathing really is just a really an amazing tool that we can access and help us process our experiences in life better.
Absolutely. Keith, can you talk about your what influence has Dr. Sebi had on your life? Please.
Well, it's so funny because I'm actually setting up, I don't know when this goes out, but September 4th through 11th, we're going back to Honduras. It's going to be my 15th time, you know, 15th time. And what I learned from Dr. Sebi is a lot of the reasons why I'm still here on the planet. There's a lot of reasons why I'm still strong and my mind is still functional. You know, I don't read with glasses, you know, things of that nature. It's because I learned how to nourish my body. I learned what was food that was good for me, how it affects me. And so I began to be aware, consciousness. Consciousness is simply aware of what to put into this vehicle that I want to run a certain way. And when you look at the long game, the sustainable model, I began to realize, because I have a background in sports, I began to realize the life that I want to live under this predicament, under this understanding and awareness of veganism. One of the first things Dr. Sebi said to me was, humans cannot process animal DNA. And that hit me like really like logically, it just cold turkey. I stopped from just hearing that that one sentence. And so through the journey, I'm like, okay, I want to be strong. I want to work out. So I had to learn how to adapt my body. I had to go through the chemistry of what I had prior, being 260 as a linebacker in the National Football League, to being whatever I am now. I'm usually like 225 and so forth. And, you know, the lifestyle I wanted to live, or lived then, I wanted to live it more consciously, being under this umbrella of nourishment. And so I had to learn the dynamic, because again, Dr. Sebi was not an athlete, he was an herbalist. So I had to fill in the blanks on my own, from the life experience that I went through. So I began to the combination of both to make it what you see today. And I'm not the person on Instagram that like, hey, look at me, and I take steroids and HGH hormones and all this. It's so funny because we have this on our web, on the web these days. Like, don't you want a body like this? But you didn't do it naturally, you know? And then what is that? How does that play on the psyche of the person looking at this, you know? All to get butt implants and injections. You know, it's like, is that what we're saying in society? And these are your coaches, you know? But the thing is, that like, again, how I live and how and where I learn is how I live. And so I feel I show up like that. And so I have a story for it. I have a formula for that. And so I can give you my formula. And the idea of giving you my formula is not necessarily that you take it exactly the way I took it, but you take the information and you find your own way with it.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful, infinitely grateful for this moment, because when we talk about teacher excellence, you're definitely an embodiment of that. And it's really interesting that what you just mentioned, because it reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my students just yesterday about living organically and being natural, but starting from intrinsically, right? And so when we have these external things that we're trying to change, what message are we sending from the soul to another soul about that? And so when we do these, like, let's say, for example, injection, and it's like, okay, that is sending a message. And is that the message that we as young women want to be sending to other people? Well, you should be valuing me for this external investment, and so on and so forth. I have another question for you, and that is about the influence that Malcolm X Shabazz has had on your life. And I'm very curious about that, because
I have a shirt, you see this?
Oh, yes, right on. Talk to
Well,
me.
you know, Malcolm was a profound person. He didn't come from a place where he was the monk initially. You know, he did a lot of dirt. He did a lot of things of the world. And I would say my lifestyle being an athlete, I lived the wildest life of being an athlete. But what I learned from Malcolm X is that you can transform, you can transition. So in a sense, even though I don't like the word, I don't prefer the word hope, but it gives me a hope for humanity, because we're living in such an unconscious way for a majority of us. And like to come to some kind of understanding and awakening from seeing, you know, Malcolm X, to seeing my life, to seeing other people that I've come in contact with that's come into this wokeness or awareness state. You can see the transformation, and then you can realize it's possible. And so I'm like anyone, when I see possibility and I see it show itself, then I'm like, well, what else is possible? Yeah.
Yes, it's like the reticular activating system. When your brain is given a piece of evidence of something that has been done, then it's automatically proof. And then it's like, you know, a snowball effect where you see like one thing after the other starts working in your favor.
Yes.
Another thing about, I know you have mentioned that one of the first places in the world that you have went to is Bosnia, which is really fascinating. And you said you've traveled over 50 countries, and I want to know what is the world to you? What have you seen? And you've seen its vastness, you've seen its infinite potential. And for perhaps people who strive or are looking towards being able to travel, what are some of the things that you have learned from your traveling, and how has it changed you? How has it transformed and developed you?
Well, I say to just answer that question, I guess in the most simplest way I can is like, you can't run from yourself. Where you are, there you are. You
Mm,
know, the thing that allows you to really take in the environment, the space that you're in, is you being present. What you'll find is, I mean, I'm in Mexico now. I was just in Brazil last week. The reality is all the places ultimately look the same. It's just your ability to take the experience, the place that you're in, and if it doesn't have the perfect scenery, the idea is what you can do is create with the fundamentals that you have around you. You can create the community around you. I met someone the other day, or like, well, I miss being in Mexico because I had a community. Well, I'm like, well, why can't you create your community where you are? It's like we're waiting for the perfect moment when the moment is always right there. And whatever exists inside of you about creating that moment, whether it's here or there, is waiting on you to show up and step up with that. And so that's what I'm here to inspire and ignite in the individuals I get an opportunity to witness to.
yes.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because a lot of the things that you're talking about is through practice and that embodiment of the practice, and that comes through repetition. And as an athlete, that that's how we reach the standard of excellence. And one of the things too about what you just said with being in different parts of the world is being present with yourself and make use of what you have around you. Oftentimes community is so important, right? Because it's that connection that we need. My question to you though is about solitude, and what is the necessity of solitude? Perhaps how do you personally define solitude, and what are the benefits you have seen from solitude?
I mean, solitude is amazing. Just realizing, everything has a pro and a con. It's like I go into solitude for reflection. I go into solitude to reboot. You know, but the idea is that I don't want to live in solitude. You know, I want to be connected, and I feel sometimes we can get caught up in like saying I don't want to be around people, I don't like people, and then that kind of cuts you off from being relatable to people. I don't feel that we're here to just be alone. This is why community, in my opinion, is a huge component to the medicine that we need to heal, to love. We have to learn how to love. We have to have practices and moments. We have to be, we're equally malnourished of that masculine, feminine principle. We're malnourished of that attention that we didn't get in certain phases of our lives. So being and understanding that, it's like, let's not deny ourselves things that we know we want. In some cases, subconsciously, we've built this armor to kind of protect ourselves. But in the sense of living, you can't live straddling the fence. You gotta go. And if it's about love that you want, well, you gotta let go. Love is risky. It's like people talking about safety. Well, when you don't complain when you go out in your car and you got your seatbelt, that's the only safety you got. Well, that's the same thing with love. This love, the only thing you got with that is the questions that you maybe can ask, leveling up the questions, or leveling up the environments where you meet the people that you go out with. But this thing is, you still have the chance that you take driving on the freeway. You have the same chance that you take trying to build a relationship and love with someone. So let's not be so afraid. Let's just try to, again, ask better questions, and realize the help that we have in our community to help us pick better people. It's one of the most interesting things is like, you're meeting men. Well, have the men in your life help you pick the men that you pick. Have your father, get your father engaged. If you don't have a father, get your brother engaged. If you don't have a brother, well, get the man that's closest to you that you look for as a friend or as a guidance or whatever, to help you make and pick these men that you're going out with. Involve the community. This is why community is there. But we typically try to do it on our own. Just like we try to heal our own mental health cases. You don't have the credentials. You don't have the awareness. And we've shown ourselves over and over, we don't have this. So why do we continue to do it? Again, the reality is we dig our own ditches. Let's stop digging ditches. Let's stop taking the L's. I said this on my TikTok today. I can't believe I got a TikTok.
Wow, that's
Like,
amazing. Oh.
I was like,
Okay.
we need to stop taking L's. Let's get some W's. We're not here to take L's for our whole life. This is not just the way it is for us. We can move from these places. Let's get some W's in. Let's get some wins. We're here for abundance, so let's stop denying ourselves the opportunity to achieve those things. I feel we have that. Yeah.
I love that so much. One of the initial ways that I connected with you, I remember, is that you had posted on your website these chakra meditations. And that really unlocked a lot for me, because oftentimes we have and I believe that's a tool too. That meditation that you had posted, the audio, is 100% a tool, because when I think of chakras and I'm listening to the videos and it's like all this knowledge, but really you have to apply it in order for it to work. And I think that that was the gateway for me of really acknowledging and centering myself and opening up my chakras and studying them and learning about them. And I want to thank you for that. And oftentimes I look at your channel, or let's say your Instagram or your TikTok, wherever that you're posting, and it's always an enlightening topic. And a lot of what you said too really resonated with me. So I appreciate that so much. Even safety too, this concept of safety, I often hear people like, be in a space of safety, but what you're saying is no, like you have to go beyond and don't hesitate. So as an athlete, what is that initial thing that you would recommend a person can go from a state of not necessarily stagnation, but like, oh, maybe I, thinking, contemplating, or perhaps even hesitating, to just going for it and going for the next thing and execution? What would you say?
Well, accumulate tools, like say, for instance, in yoga, which yoga is just breathing and moving fundamentally. Are you doing just that? Are you breathing? And when you notice your breath, you realize how you're not. And then when you stand, are you standing in the four corners of your feet? And a lot of times what we know in yoga, we're not. We had to learn how to balance. We had to learn how to these postures. We had to learn how to put our spine in an erect sequence, And so again, through the concept, it's really about growth and development that we're experiencing when it comes to a meditation. We're having to learn how to have conversations, We're having to learn compassion. And really the initial or the pattern is learning compassion for yourself. And by discovering it and putting yourself through the trial and error, it's going to give you more insight about being compassionate with other people. And guess what we'll find? It's not that we'll ever find ourselves perfection, but what we'll find is that we're flawed, and we're flawed by nature. And so as I'm looking to relate to the other person, we try to set ourselves up for the best or winning opportunity that we can create, knowing that that person, it's not about if, but it's when it comes, whatever it comes, I'm prepared to handle it. I have the tools that's going to allow me to handle it. And not that I go into fight or flight, but I go into the problem solving mode to solve the issue, And again, it's a lot of self-accountability, which is hard, but it's like we can point all day long, but how are we showing up? Let's handle that. That's what we can handle. And so it just puts it back on us as individuals, because again, anybody can be in victim mode. Anybody can say, well, I'm the victim to this. But what happens when we know? What happens when we're armed with the tools to problem solve? I think it changes the dynamic. It changes the game. But the thing is that we have never really, really, truly considered, do I know how to love? Do I know how to be in relationship? Do I know how to forgive? And if I knew all these things, I wouldn't be going around talking about the triggers that I have, because I consider triggers are things that we're choosing to hold on to. You don't have to hold on to it.
That one right there. That one right there. One of the things that actually about yoga that really shifted my perspective, enlightened me really, was what Brian Kest said. It was really beautiful. It was magnificent. He said, yoga is about the family relationships. It's about enhancing your family relationships. It's taking yoga from the mat and seeing do you have patience with your family? Are you exhibiting patience within your family? Are you showing that mindfulness with your family, that love with your family, that compassion with your family and outward? And that for me really hit home. And I feel like also one of the things that you do as well, when you share your workout techniques, when you're showing that you're always showing up, it's about that, plus again those communities, those connections that you're building and making. I know that you mentioned one of the things that you look for in people that you want to connect with are they about curiosity and whether they're curious. Are there any other elements perhaps that stand out to you in people that you're saying that you would say yes to, that those are my people, that is my community, this is somebody I would consider as family?
Yeah, I would say progress. Are you doing this meditation? Are you doing this idea of living as a hobby, or is this your practice? And the practice, in my opinion, is something that I'm implementing in my life. And then from implementation in my life, it's going to show me a result. It's going to show me how I got from A to B to C to D. So a lot of people, as we've gone through COVID, right? I mean, look at your life, do the accountability of self, the realization of self, whether it be forgiveness, whether it be compassion, whether it be a better relationship, whether it be a better job opportunity, career that you've created in the last 3 years. How has your life evolved? And if you're still the same, we need to reevaluate. We need to reevaluate. We cannot stay the same. It's only two ways of living. It's really one way. You're either living or you're dead. It's like, and are you living like that? And clearly, when you go into the pathologies, like diabetes, high blood pressure, they're all symptoms of the same thing. Is meaning you're living in your body, but your body's dying. You have numbness.
Wow.
The circulation is not flowing through your body.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that pathology is showing up for us as we're living with this mindset.
I appreciate you so much. I want to give my full thanks and my full gratitude to you for making this time and for allowing this opportunity to share this knowledge and this wisdom and all of the experiences that you have up until this far. And I am very sure that when we meet again next time, that there will be much more to Keith Mitchell's transformation.
Yes. So cool. Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. Great questions.